This is a sport, like I always say, that is one of the hardest because when you're done with the gym, unlike football, you can't go out and knock down 5 beers every night unless you're Levrone. And you can't. You miss holidays, you miss birthdays, you miss graduations because it's an incredibly selfish sport. As you know, when you're done with it, you're like, God, how selfish was that?
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. And we are back for another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio on this May 1st, 2023 afternoon. Chris, we are in May, and you know what May means. Pittsburgh guest posing.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal. Yeah. It's going to be a very big deal.
Well, it's really the first. It's kind of like halfway through the season, so to speak. So I think what happens is it kind of gives us a little preview of what we're going to expect for the Olympia. And obviously, everyone's off season, but some guys look better off season than other people, which usually impresses. Sean Roden notoriously looked terrible at the guest posings in Pittsburgh, and he always somehow managed to look his best at the Olympia, whereas other guys sometimes looked amazing at these guest postings and then weren't so impressive at the Olympia. So it really doesn't mean a lot, but it does give us a little tease of what to expect come the fall.
I think it means more than ever now.
It does because of social media. That's why.
It does because of social media, and it does because last year, Derek showed up and looked like the best, arguably the best on stage, and he rolled the hype all the way into the show, and he lived up to the hype, of course. Yeah. But that was like a breakthrough moment for him.
And he wasn't even supposed to be up on that stage. That's the funny thing.
Yeah,
he went up there because he was because Ramy didn't show up.
Yeah,
which brings up an interesting topic I wanted to ask you. Of the United States bodybuilders, okay, in the top Olympia echelon, which would be, I guess, Derek and Nick Walker, who do you think's more popular?
I think Nick Walker is the most popular guy right now.
Which is interesting, don't you think? Because Derek just placed second at the Olympia. You would think this guy would be. He's a good-looking guy. He's got a great look, right? Small waist, marketable, freaky guy. How come Derek isn't more popular than Nick Walker?
Well, I mean, you can say those things about Nick Walker too. Freaky guy, I mean, I don't think his waist is wide.
No, I'm just saying, why do people have this obsession with Nick Walker and not Derek Lunsford anymore?
Because Nick has documented his rise for a while now, and people can connect to that. They can get behind that, and he's talked the talk, and he's walked the walk. He's delivered on the results, and I don't know if he's made predictions of how he's going to do, but people love confident bodybuilders. People are attracted to confidence, straight across the board, whatever profession it is. I'm not saying Derek is not confident, but Nick has put out there lots of videos where behind that video is a sense of supreme confidence. And it's confidence without being arrogant, if that makes sense. People hate confidence that also walks a tightrope with being arrogant. And that he is not. His mother may be a little bit arrogant, I'm just kidding. And that's another thing, you know, his mom is like, you know, right behind him, you know,
Right.
cheering him on, and people love that too. So, and you know, Derek's a good guy too, a nice guy, and um, I'm not saying he's not a nice guy, but just you know, I don't really know these guys, but yeah, I met.
Is it the freak factor that Nick's got over Derek, and people just like the freaky? I mean, because I think Derek's pretty freaky too, but Nick is, you know, like a monster. You know, guys just love monstrously big bodybuilders. I mean, I was a very popular bodybuilder back in the day, and I certainly didn't have an Olympia level physique, but I had Olympia level maybe muscle and conditioning, and I think people just kind of get enamored with that, because I think the majority of people who compete or who bodybuild do it because they just want to look big and freaky and hard. I mean, they don't even care about, you know, a lot of them even getting on stage, but they like the mass, you know.
Yeah. Well,
and I think
mean,
that's why guys like Nasser and Marcus Rule were so, you know, popular too.
Nasser was popular. Marcus Rule was popular. And I mean, people do love the, you know, the freaks, you know, especially if you're freaky massive and you come across as, you know, personable. I think Rolly was, you know, Rolly never placed higher than third at Olympia, but I mean, talk about popularity. You know,
well, I mean, third's pretty impressive at the Olympia, but even before he was placing top 5 at the Olympia, he was still very popular because of that.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of it too is you know, boils down to, you know, how you know, social media, besides the training stuff, showing your progress, showing, people love that. People love showing insight to your real life. I mean, Jay, before there was social media, Jay had the videos, right?
Right.
He had all those DVDs that it put out, a VH. I think he had a VHS. He had VHS videos.
I'm sure he had VHSs in the 90s. There was no DVDs back then. Yeah.
You know, and things were, you know, harder and more expensive to produce at that time. But a lot of videos, you know, could show insight into his life, his relationships, you know, the way he ate, and nobody was doing that at that time.
Right.
I mean, the more personable part, or you know, genuine part of that you can show on social media, I think people like. You know, anyone, you can watch anyone's training and anyone's, you know, give you the ABCs of their diet or their contest diet or their off-season diet, and that's interesting too. But you know, people like to come into your house. People like to, you know, see the car you drive. People like to see, you know, how you interact with friends, family, that type of thing. And I think Nick has done a lot of that, and that's added to his, you know, level of popularity.
Right. And then some people ask the question, well, why is Nick Walker, you know, like more popular than Ramy in the United States? I said, well, you know, Nick Walker is from the United States, so, and he's more accessible. You know, people, like you said, the most people who are the most popular on social media are the people who make themselves the most accessible. And not everyone feels comfortable. Like, my wife doesn't want to ever be on camera. Like, I'm always like, let's do a video. She just, that's not her thing. She doesn't like to be on camera. You know, she likes to be behind the scenes person. But social media is about accessibility. And I think Nick makes himself so accessible, like you said earlier, that in addition to his physique, that is another compelling reason why people like to follow him.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for the, you know, it's good for the brand, the lineup, the Olympias. When, I mean, it's, you know, we don't, you said it, your wife doesn't like to be on camera. I mean, I don't think Hadi does, or Remy, you know, in-depth videos and presentations on, like, quote, who they are, or what, you know, what a typical day looks like, or, you know, how they celebrate, you know, holidays or birthdays or family life. And people connect with that. People like to see, you know, what their favorite bodybuilder or one of their favorite bodybuilders is doing.
No, I agree. And I think it's, I think for people who are coming up in the industry, they should take a page out of Nick Walker's playbook and understand that as you become more popular, it's important that you work that social media angle, because that's how you're going to make money. You know, there's dollars and cents, unfortunately, linked to how many likes and followers you have. It's just a reality. We might not like that reality, but that's the reality of today's world. And so Nick's doing a good job. And, you know, I think that if Hadi Chupin spoke English, and if his, you know, he didn't have a hearing issue, I think that we would see more of him on social media. I think Ramy really misses the boat, and I still think that it's not too late for him. If Ramy was on social media all the time, I think he would his earning potential would be even higher than what it is right now. I think he would be one of the most popular guys because he is a freak. People do want to know what this guy does. You know what? If you ask me or anyone asked me, what does Ramy do as far as diet, training? I couldn't even tell you anything. I would be like, I don't know. Because I mean, you might know a little bit about what he eats and stuff like that because you worked with him that one time. But I mean, for the average person, I don't think anyone knows anything about Ramy. Do they?
No, I mean it's
He talked about his childhood or his upbringing or anything like that. I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, Dave, you know what? People would love to see like you or anyone, you know, one of the best, like I'm going back to the you know, pre-social media, like when there was just like, I think MD and maybe like Facebook was in its infancy. Right. You went to Kai Green's project and you drove your $400,000 car and parked out in front of his house and you took the elevator up into the piss smell elevator and you went into the apartment and there was all Kai's artwork. That was it. A star was born. You know, when people saw the artwork and they saw that there was a different side to Kai Green, a non-contrived side, because people have people present on social media what they, a lot of times, even though they're showing like interaction with their family, they're kind of sort of acting. You know, I mean, they're presenting something that if the camera was not there, they may be behaving in a different way. But when you were able to capture Kai Green, that was just genuine, unadulterated the way he was. And that was, I mean, that video was one of the best videos, profile videos of all time in bodybuilding, because it showed, you know, it showed struggle. It showed, you know, financial struggle. It showed struggle to become a bodybuilding champion. It showed where he lived, which a lot of bodybuilders, right, in an apartment like that, they wouldn't want you to come.
Yeah, they wouldn't show you. They would not show you where they live.
They'd stay at the uncle's house who was like, you know, a millionaire and say, this is where I live.
Right. Yeah. Like Sean Ray portraying himself as, you know, the rich and the famous. I think that was the name of his video. Yeah. Right?
Well, he was neither of them, but
no. He portrayed it as that. But, you know, Kai Green, Big Ramy, think about it. I mean, I'd love to go on the fishing boats with him and interview him on his fishing boat while he's out with the family fishing. I mean, no one aside from that little tidbit, and I probably am the only person who ever asked him about the fishing boats and how many they got. And remember when I interviewed him, I think at the Olympia one year, briefly. That to me is interesting. Like, remember that video we saw of Ramy like clowning around when he was like before he became like a real great bodybuilder? He actually had hair, but he was at a real receding line. He was in the gym messing around with people, like joking around. It was like Ramy like I've never seen before. And it was really funny because Ramy was acting like a clown. And you could see he probably had 22-inch arms, but the rest of him was not as big as, you know, as it would eventually become. Like, I want to know about that Ramy. Like, how did Ramy even get into weightlifting? How did he, you know, I know he was working at the gym, cleaning up the equipment or whatever, but what possessed him to go from fishing into the gym, and how did his family feel about it, and, you know, all that stuff? I mean, because there's no way this guy could potentially have known that he was going to be a genetic freak and be one of the biggest bodybuilders of all time.
Well, what did his initial first training partners think of him? You know, that's the first guys who were working out with him, and you know, what do they think now, and what were they thinking then? Yeah. Because he's out there. He you know, he is quoted out there somewhere when he started that. I mean, a lot of people are like that anyway. To become the best, you have to like think you're going to become the best. But he wanted to become the best right from like day one.
Oh, he did? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it wasn't like some like, oh, I just started working out and my body responded and maybe I'll try to win this small show. It was like, okay, you know, let me try to win the Olympia. And that was before he had even competed.
I wonder what he looked like. Have you ever seen pictures of him like when he first started?
No, I just I think that first I've only seen pictures when, you know, his first show. I don't know if it was his first show, that Qatar Cup, that gold Cup or whatever they had in Qatar.
By then, yeah.
He was really impressive.
But I'd love to see when he first started out and what people thought of him and, you know, all that stuff. I'm sure people thought he was crazy, you know, say, I want to be Mr. Olympia. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone when they start out is like that, you know. The only person who you could have said, yeah, he probably will be Mr. Olympia was Ronnie Coleman, because I think Ronnie was born with 20-inch arms.
Yeah.
Coming out of his mama's belly there.
I mean, nobody's really captured the struggle either. I mean, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He didn't win it till 20. You know, 9 years. He's already been on the stage. No, 13 was the first year he was there. So he was there 8 times.
We know the Ronnie Coleman story. He went to Brian Dobson's gym. He had played football at Grambling. You know, he was a great football player. I don't know if he got hurt or whatever, but Brian gave him a free membership if he said he would compete. Ronnie didn't really want to compete, but he wanted the free membership. He was delivering pizzas because he had no money, even though he had a degree, you know, to become he was an accountant by nature. He couldn't get a job. And we know the whole story. He became a cop. You know, he served even while he was Mr. Olympia as a police officer for many years. I mean, we know Ronnie's story, what do they call it? The origination story, origin story. We don't know anything about Ramy's story. I mean, that would be super. If Ramy chronicled all this on his Instagram or on anything, a YouTube channel, he would be enormously popular. I know I would watch it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's
you know, even the interview, just talk about it, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's important. It's important because that's what people want to see. And, you know, even though you're a bodybuilder and your job is to go, you know, to the gym every day and just eat your meals, you know, if you're going to cash in on it, and everyone wants to cash in on it because that's what life is. I mean, that's not what life is about, but I mean, that's part of life, is having the cash to live life. And, you know, and you should be, as a bodybuilder, rewarded. You know what I mean? You should be paid for, there should be income streams that are available to you, you know, to leverage, because, you know, you put in, but this is a sport, like I always say, that is one of the hardest, because when you're done with the gym, unlike football, you can't go out and knock down 5 beers every night unless you're Levrone. And, you know, you can't, you know, you miss holidays, you miss birthdays, you miss graduations, because it's an incredibly selfish sport. As you know, when you're done with it, you're like, God, how selfish was that? I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way, but it's really all in
reality.
So you need to, if you're going to sacrifice that much, it's important to be compensated for it. So if you can parlay your story like Ramy's story and get whatever, you know, YouTube compensation.
YouTube, right? Compensation, sure. Why doesn't he have that income coming in? We talk about multiple streams of income. That should be a huge stream for him.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show,
Mr. Olympia. Come on.
It goes to show that there's probably, you know, does he have a YouTube station?
I don't think so. I would
no. Then that is, I mean, that's his choice. But at the same time, it's indicative of people around him who, I mean, there should be someone that he's close with who says, you know, you need a YouTube channel.
He absolutely needs something and it's got to be done. You know, if he wants to do it in his language and English, that's fine. He
speaks great English. He speaks this.
No, I know he does, but I'm just saying he can do it in both languages, even, because, you know, and I think it would be enormously popular. I mean, I would love to see where Ramy came from and hear the Ramy, or like I said, origin story of that, you know, and then just what he does on a regular basis. I think people are really interested in him because he is a big freak. People love to hear what these guys do because this is the unfortunate reality. Most people out there think that whatever these guys, you know, tell them that they're doing, if they do it too, they'll look like these guys. Now, we know that that's not the case because these guys are genetic freaks, but for the majority of people, they believe that stuff. And that's why these YouTube channels, because I see some of these YouTube channels where people go into the gym, Chris, and they'll film their whole video. It could be, I mean, their whole workout. It could be an hour and a half, and they'll just put it on YouTube, uncut. Them from the minute they walk into the gym, every exercise, every rep, everything that goes on. And I know people that will watch these videos because I see the views on them. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how the heck can anyone want? Well, you know what? It's because people who are just starting out or who are still potentially, quote, beginners will watch these things because they don't know what they're doing and they want to learn the whole process. And for them, it's very interesting. For you and me, we fucking want to blow our brains out watching stuff. But because we've seen it a million times. But for the average person who doesn't know anything about working out, they're very informative because it gives you the whole process of what these guys go through. So I'm not saying Ramy has to do that, but he should definitely be on YouTube chronically what he does.
There's many ways to learn, but you can learn by watching, and you can learn by having someone show you.
Right.
So, not everyone's going to have, Ramy or Nick Walker bring you to the gym and show you, but you can copy them. You can watch. I mean, that's what everyone probably coming up did. At some point they watched someone else do it.
I got news for you. We didn't have that benefit back then of watching, people on YouTube because there was no YouTube. There was no social media. There was nothing. But if I was coming up in today's bodybuilding world, I'd be watching this channel here for information. I'd be watching some of these other channels, where these guys chronicle their workouts, but guys who are instructional about it. You know what I mean? Not necessarily just the big freaky guys, but I would be watching everything because I would want to consume as much information and immerse myself in as much information as I possibly can get from, people that I would respect and consider authorities. I mean, like, Dorian would have had a YouTube channel while we were coming up. We would probably know every minute of everything he did on that channel. Would just be, it wouldn't even be possible not for any bodybuilder. It would be required reading, so to speak, almost.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, that's what made those. I mean, there were a few people back in the day, like who had pre-YouTube. Jay had stuff. I think Sean Ray had good training instruction videos. I mean, the people had
limited.
Gaspari had some videos out. He was one of the first to put stuff out.
Right. The good thing was Joe Weider. I think it was. I don't know if he was spearheading that. I think he helps a lot of these guys with their own training videos, and then he let them market it on there in his magazine for sale. So these guys were making money through those videos because there was no other way to see them. So if you wanted to see Gaspari train, you had to buy his video.
Yeah.
You want to see Sean Ray train, you bought his video.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. By the way, I first of all, Kevin, I don't know if I told you this, but Kevin Levrone called me the other day. Did I tell you?
No.
Yeah, he just called to see how I was doing after my surgery. He didn't want to bother me initially, he said, but he called. That was it. The call was exclusively to see, hey, how you doing, Dave? Which I thought was very nice of him and thoughtful. So, that was really awesome. And I was just on his Instagram the other day, and I saw this video he put up, and it's nuts. I gotta play it for you. I want you to name what year it was. Okay, when I show you the video.
Got to put on the glasses, Dave.
All right, put the glasses on.
Let's see. What year is this?
You look at those delts and triceps.
Yeah, I don't. It's probably over. Dave, hold on. It's probably in Europe somewhere. Am I right? Yes, I am right. Yeah, he's on the tour somewhere. You know how I know?
How?
Because he's so full here and it means he was able to eat on the tour and just was able to, some people fall apart. He was able to keep his. I'm guessing, unless it's a guest poser. Maybe it's a guest posing.
I don't think so because I think he's got a number on. Oh no, he doesn't have a number on. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is a guest posing. Probably like right after the Olympia in Europe, someplace probably.
I saw him guest pose, Dave, after a show.
This might be a show. He looks too good here for guest posing.
No, he doesn't, Dave. I saw him guest pose in New Haven after he won the 94. Did he win the 94, Arnold?
Yes.
And he was I think it was a week after, or maybe 2 weeks after, and he was probably even rounder than he was there.
Look at those arms. He had good, really great arms initially when he first came out too.
He had great everything.
Yeah.
He had great everything. How was that doing this year's Olympia?
Win.
Hit the most muscular group, huh?
it's a miracle that it's amazing that he never won an Olympia. That to me is what's the most amazing thing, Chris.
Well, there was a lot of good people who didn't win the Olympia. He didn't win an Olympia. Wheeler didn't win. I mean, there, you know.
What year is this?
Yeah, this is the 99. Let's see. Is it the 99 Olympia?
2000.
I mean, I'm 99. Sorry, 2000. I was going to say 2000, Dave. Sorry.
He writes, tell me who won. That's what Levrone writes. Ronnie's still pretty freaky there, I got to tell you. But Levrone looked good there. So it's not really a straight-on angle either, so it's hard to tell. Yeah. Kind of like a... This was Levrone probably training 3 months out of the year too for this show.
I'm not saying anything, Dave, because he's just he's so. He was even, one of his better looks. I mean, he had so many different looks. It's so weird because Kevin had looks. There's so many different looks for people, and like he could come in full and it would be a great look. Other people come in full and they'd just be off. If that makes sense. Or he could come in super dialed. And it would be a tremendous look for him, and other people would come in super dialed, and it'd be a flat look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what people don't appreciate, and that's why you had to really be there in person to see these shows. Ronnie Coleman was probably one of the worst posers of all Mr. Olympias. He just didn't have that great. I don't know. His body awareness was not as great. It was good, but it wasn't. He didn't know how to hit a front lat spread. His side tricep, he didn't know how to execute properly. And so sometimes you can watch some of these pictures, see these pictures or whatever, like a static picture, and you're like, he didn't really look that good. If you saw Ronnie in person, if you were sitting in the first couple rows, and when Ronnie walked out, just him walking, you were like, show's over. You had to be there to see Ronnie in person because he was so grainy hard, and he was huge. He had both, He wasn't like one of these guys where like, oh, he's a little flat, but he is grainy. He was full and he was shredded. And you had to see him in person to really appreciate how big he was and how crazy he was. Because when we were watching Dorian in the 90s, I don't think any of us ever thought we'd see anyone even come close to being like Dorian. And then Ronnie comes along and probably, and you're like, holy mackerel, this guy's better than Dorian. I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, he was crazy.
And his back was freaky too. Probably freakier than Dorian's, even though Dorian had that crazy back. I mean, Ronnie had so much detail in his back on the back double.
Well, he had the detail, and he had the wacky arms on the back double.
Dorian didn't have good arms, like Ronnie did. But those are the days. I've been watching this TV show. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Paramount. It's called The Offer. And I'll tell you what it's about. I'm sure you probably haven't seen it. The Offer is it was written by the guy who produced the movie The Godfather.
Yeah, I read about it. I didn't see it.
And he wrote a book, and now they made a 10-part miniseries on Paramount I've been watching about what he had to go through to make this movie. And it's really insanity. I mean, no one knows, if you don't know the backstory, you'd be flabbergasted to know what they had to go through between Sinatra wanting the movie canceled because he thought it was, he was being negatively portrayed as one of the characters, to the mafia wanting to shut him down, it was nuts. The hoops this guy had to jump through. And he was a young guy. He was not an established guy. He had only had one hit, Hogan's Heroes, on TV. And he was just a guy with balls. And it's a great, great story. But the reason I bring it up, and you can watch it on Paramount Plus. There's, like I said, it's 10 episodes. The reason I bring it up is because Lou Ferrigno's in the series. He plays a mafia-like guy, like one of the guys, the henchman.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a speaking part. And I I don't know if this is going to ruin it, but it's really not a big part of the thing. But I didn't know this either. But I guess the guy who was supposed to play Luca Brasi, Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. The famous line from The Godfather. He's one of the mafia. the guy who was supposed to play Luca Brasi died. He had a stroke, the actor, right before they started filming. So they didn't know what to do. They were freaking panicking because everything was going wrong with this movie. And so they had real like mafia guys there from the Palumbo crime family who you got to watch the whole movie to understand what was going on. They were there, because they oversaw the unions and everything like that. And the character that Lou Ferrigno is portraying, they needed an actor to jump in as Luca Brasi. And so they got him. He was a legitimate mafia guy. And he stepped in and played the part. And they're showing how they're trying to teach Lou Ferrigno the lines. And he couldn't even read the lines. That Francis Ford Coppola, who was the director, is like, don't even worry about it. He's supposed to be nervous anyway. We'll feed him the lines right before we shoot the scene. And but Lou is great in the movie. He's he looks like a mafia guy, and he's so tall. He's like 6'5", and he's great. He's in a lot of scenes, and he actually has some good speaking lines. And I got to tell you, Lou's in his 70s.
You're such a Lou Ferrigno fan. Did you watch The Office because Lou Ferrigno was in it, or because you wanted to see the?
No, I didn't even know he was in it. All of a sudden, I said, "Wait a second, that's Lou Ferrigno." And then I remember him telling me, like a year or two ago when I interviewed him, that he was going to be in some. And it came back to me in my head that he told me they were doing something about The Godfather, and he was playing a part. I didn't know. I said it sounded great, but I completely forgot about it because it had to be about 2 years ago. He told me this. And I was so excited to see him in there. And I went and looked it up to make sure that was really Lou Ferrigno. I looked up the cast of The Offer, and sure enough, Lou Ferrigno's in it. And he, like I said, it's not like one passing scene he's got. He's got lines, and he's got in the movie. So he must have gotten paid a few bucks with it, I'm sure. And let me pull this thing up here. Hold on. This is the Giovanni Ribisi. I don't know if you know the actor. He's the guy on the left.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of stuff. He plays the mafia guy, Joe Colombo, the mafia boss. You don't even know it's him. He's so good and believable that you would think that this guy really was, a mafia guy. I mean, he captured the part. They made him look like this guy. I don't know how they did it, but it was unbelievable how great he was in this thing. And they got a guy, Chris, to play Marlon Brando because they got all the actors. They looked exactly like Al Pacino. They found a guy who looked just like him. They had a Marlon Brando. The guy who played Marlon Brando was so believable as Brando that I couldn't believe it. It was,
if your father was still alive and didn't
love it.
They could have cast him as Marlon Brando.
He loved probably. My father loved Marlon Brando. He thought he was the greatest actor of all time. And he loved The Godfather. He would. I was saying to myself as I watched the series, I'm like, my father would love this series.
Oh yeah,
it's they didn't. Yeah, the people who were producing the whole movie, they didn't want Pacino to play the part. First of all, he was an unknown. I didn't realize how short he was like a midget. He's like really short, Pacino,
very short.
And he was very shy at the time. And they're like, he's going to ruin the movie, and they wanted to fire him a million times during the movie. Until they finally saw him play in one of the dailies, one of the scenes, and they realized what a great actor he was. Because even though in real life he was kind of timid and little and short and like a little nebbishy guy, when he would act, he would become the character. Like he would just, assume whoever he was, and he was obviously he made the whole movie. But Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola, he had certain people. He wanted this person and that person, and he would go crazy if they told him they couldn't get the person. And somehow the whole movie worked out, the way it was supposed to. But
what's a better Italian movie, Dave? Moonstruck or The Godfather?
Yeah, they're both great. I love Moonstruck too. But The Godfather was good because the mafia thought they were going to put the book when it came out was the #1 bestseller, but they thought that the Italian Americans thought that the movie was disrespectful to the Italians because it made them look like a bunch of animals, like that they were just murderers and stuff like that. But the movie, the way they wrote the movie was about a family, and it was about what it was like as a family running a business to have to operate in America where maybe there was some bias towards Italian Americans. And even though it was, matter of fact, they never used the word mafia in the movie because that was one of the concessions that they had for the mafia to let them make the movie. They never used that term. It's not one time in the movie or the script. And that's why the movie was so popular with Italians, because it did portray the family and what they go through in the cooking. There was a scene where they're cooking sauce, and Francis Coppola says he had this kitchen built. It was like 75 grand. He's like, they're like, you go putting us over budget, Francis. What do we need a kitchen for? All we need is one burner, like a propane burner to make the sauce. He's like, no. It has to be a real kitchen, because that's what Italians do. They cook together. He goes, that authenticity was everything. And they used a house in Staten Island for the Don Corleone's house where all the family lived. And the guy got nervous, this Italian guy, and tried to back out at the last minute. These mafia guys grabbed him and they locked him in a room. And he thought he was gonna get killed. Obviously, they weren't gonna kill him. They wanted to just scare him, and until he agreed to let him use the house, because Coppola had to have that house after he saw it. He's like, I gotta have this house. I need the house. So it's very well done. If you guys,
it's funny. Did he buy that house?
I don't know. Who knows? Is that what?
No. There's a house that was used in the Godfather movies that's up for sale because it was up for sale, and it was in the context. The reason it was like on Yahoo News is because it segued into the offer.
Oh,
so that's it. It was talking.
Maybe that was the house. It was. I know that they rented this house to shoot all the scenes in Staten Island. That was the
yes, that's the one for sale right now.
That's probably it. Yeah. It was a really nice house. It was a big house. I have to imagine it's probably worth a fortune, especially being in Staten Island,
Yeah.
So,
Staten Island. 20 years ago, Staten Island was cheap.
Yeah, not anymore. You'll have to do some of your real estate research to find out for us next time. Hey, speaking of freaks from the 90s, I was looking at I'm friends with Vince Taylor, and I was looking at his page, and I'm just going to put the video up, because you know what? You can't even explain what you're going to see until you see it. Vince Taylor is what, 70 years old now? 60 years old?
No, he's
how old is he?
Probably, let's see. When's the last time he competed?
I don't even know. I don't know if he's 70 or 65 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think he's not 70. But he's got the best physique. Yeah, look at that.
He hadn't even worked out. He's got these little Vince Taylor grippers, which I kind of like.
He gets a good pump from that stuff. I told you.
Look at his biceps. He just started working out because he was small like a couple months ago, Chris. He said, I'm getting back into the gym. I haven't been here for a while. This was like maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Someone writes, get one more Masters Olympia title. Would you look at those freaking arms? See, that's someone who's just got genetics. It doesn't matter what he does to pump those arms up. They're gonna grow. That's a massive bicep.
Yep. Dave, I saw him in Atlantic City when he did the 87 Nationals. Can you imagine?
He looks exactly the same facially, doesn't he?
Yeah, 87, 97, 207, 217. So give him his age, 2017, 35 years ago, let's say 36 years ago. He's closing in on, I think he's like he might be 68, Dave, I'm guessing.
I think he's close to 70, yeah.
Because he was...
he started late.
Yeah, I think at the Nationals in 87 where he could have won, Sean Ray beat him. He was phenomenal that year.
That was Night of Champions when he won.
Yeah, when he first came on, he was like he still had the quads. Look at the quads.
I don't even think he squatted, right? I think he just was like a leg presser or something like that.
A leg he might have just done
extension. Yeah, leg extensions.
Dave, you're doing squats with 600 and his legs.
Vince had calves too.
Oh, he had crazy calves. They looked like implants. It was so good.
Yeah.
He had delts. He had width. He had back width.
Yeah. Unbelievable, this guy.
So which routine was better? I asked you, was the Godfather better than Moonstruck? Was the Macarena better than the Terminator?
His Terminator routine was the best, I think, because he was the first one to really do it.
Well,
Kamali did a great Terminator routine, but it was really based on Vince Taylor's routine. But he did a great job with it. But Vince was the first one to even come up with the concept.
Vince came up with the concept, and then Vince came up with it was almost like Weird Al Yankovic. He came up with the Macarena after that. Remember this?
Right. Yeah. He did the Macarena. You're right, on stage. 100%.
And the crowds at the Arnold would go ballistic. When he did the Terminator routine,
no one had ever seen anything like that. And he owned those crowds. He could do anything.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think he almost did the Macarena just to see if he can. I think he must have said to his wife, I can do anything on this stage and they're going to love it. And she's probably like, well, do the Macarena. And he's probably like, all right, you'll see. He was so cool, Vince Taylor, that he could pull it off. Anyone else would have done it. They would have looked like a freaking fool up there. But he actually looked cool doing it.
I wonder why he retired, because he didn't have, that I know of, injuries, and he didn't have bad
he had some back problems, Chris. He had some back problems.
Because he didn't have bad placings. You know what I mean? Like some people I'm used to placing top 6 and I get 12. I'm used to placing top 5, and I'm not talking pro shows like the Olympia. He's perennially right up there in the first call out.
He had back problems, he told me. Big back problems, like pain. And but he was the kind of guy that can go into the gym. He's like, I want to do one more comeback. Remember when he made the comeback? He made it to the Olympia. He was like 3rd in the Australian Grand Prix. I don't even know how old he was. He was in his 50s.
50, I think it was 50.
Probably the best comeback at 50 of anyone in the history of the sport.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy that can go in the gym and do 20-pound dumbbells and grow 22-inch arms, And so he went into the gym and just started training. I don't even think he was even training heavy.
He do dumbbells, Dave. He uses that little thing that he invented. That little
It's tail grippers, yeah. He's a cable guy. He got me into cables for arms, and you know what? They work. They work for me because I have a long arm. But his whole thing was he blew himself up, probably lifting the lightest weights in the history of bodybuilding, and competed, made it to the Olympia at 50, and looked freaking awesome. And so the guy's just got insane genetics. I bet you if he made a comeback now, at whatever age he is, 60, whatever, he probably would be so. We would probably be so impressed with the way he looked that because I think the muscle would come back. I think all he has to do is do the training.
Dillett was a big cable guy too.
Oh, he was? I didn't know that. Yeah, I know he didn't lift heavy either, right?
Well, he didn't squat.
He didn't squat?
No. So the funny thing is, if someone came to me or came to you and said, "What's the best exercise for legs?" would say, "Oh, squat." And those guys did squat and they had crazy legs.
That's called genetics. Because someone told me Paul would do the 30-pound dumbbell curls and have those arms.
Yeah, no, he I told you Paul stayed with me for like a few weeks before he won the North Americas.
Right. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And he was like, he didn't, I wouldn't say didn't, he didn't train heavy. And, it's somebody who's telling you, coaching you.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to say? Hey, Paul, you got to train heavy. It's, it was working. So, I feel
he was a lot bigger than you were, that's for sure. And you were probably way stronger than him, I'm sure.
Oh, he would blow up in the gym too. He would, people say I got a good pump.
Yeah.
He would look like any body part that he would train, he would get every body part would blow up with a pump.
When you would bring him to the gym in Maine there, what would people
say? People would just be aghast.
Would they lose their mind?
They would lose their mind because Dave, we were training at the time in the junkiest, crappiest, smallest gym. I didn't go to like a Worlds or Golds. I went to it was called Mighty's Gym. Like Mighty Mouse. A mouse was the mascot on the sign.
Right.
And the guy who owned it, his name was Mike and his wife was Dee Dee, and they combined those names, Mighty's.
Oh my God, that's funny.
And they came up with like a little, mascot to put instead of the guy on the Gold's Gym shirt, they had a mouse.
That's awesome.
And if we're in Florida, DeSantis would probably sue them.
Yeah. It's probably a great marketing idea right now. Probably people making a lot of money with it.
Yeah. So when Dillett walked in with that, as Jay would say, with that white towel around his neck, because he'd never not have that towel around his neck.
Is he a sweater? Is that why he used to sweat a lot?
No, I don't know. He used to sweat, and he would wear that white, like he would wear a white t-shirt with a low V cut every single day to the gym, and he'd never wear shorts. He'd never wear shorts ever, and he had great quads. He'd wear sweatpants like slacks, and the t-shirt would be something that you just have to stretch it out to barely get on him. And so he'd walk through the door, and people would be like, "You got to be kidding me," because they'd never seen anything like that. And he looked like, because he was so round, he looked like and he was tall. He looked like 7 feet, not 6, whatever he was, 6'1".
That's awesome.
He was crazy impressive.
Yeah, I was gonna say the kids at the gym, and probably no one knew who he was, right, Chris? Because back then he really hadn't made a name for himself yet. So people just seeing this big, like, Frankenstein monster you're bringing into the gym, they're like, "What the hell? Where did Chris find this guy?"
Well, Dave, he would pose in my kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'd say, like, hit a front double, if you think Ronnie wasn't a good poser, like I'd hit a back double, and I wouldn't even correct him, because I'd be like, well, no one's going to beat you anyway. It's the North Americas. So why even, you know what I mean? You don't even need to really be.
Yeah, he was not a good poser. He had terrible body awareness. He's another one who couldn't hit a front lat. Him and Ronnie couldn't hit the front lat spread. They thought it was the most muscular pose.
Yeah.
And they would overflex on that pose. That's a big mistake people make with lat spreads. And it took me a while to understand that too. You're not flexing. If you flex, you completely lock down your lats and you can't open them up. And it's really a relaxing pose. The only thing you're really flexing on a lat spread is your quads. And
you want to laugh. You want to laugh like crazy, Dave, and date you and me, and date everything. Date the whole Dillett. I used to have, I don't know where they are now, because I don't save that stuff. I'm sure I threw it out.
Yeah.
When I moved. But like, I would have him hit a back double, and I'd want him to see it. And I didn't have an iPhone, because there was no such thing as an iPhone. So I'd take a Polaroid.
You had the Polaroids?
I'd take a Polaroid. And it'd come out, you know what I mean? It'd come out instantly.
Did you get that from Bob?
And I'd show Paul, like, here's the way your back looks, Paul. And it'd be like, take it again. Well, it's like $5 a picture, a Pol-
You had
like 20 Polaroids for like $100, and they'd like want to take them again the next day.
You had to have gotten that whole thing that had to be a Bob Grushkin Polaroid.
It was.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, Polaroids were really, when we would do photo shoots, if you remember, the photographers who were there with the cameras, they were shooting on film cameras. So what they would do is they would have a Polaroid camera there, and a really high-end one set up on a tripod, and they would take a Polaroid first, and they'd look and see how it came out. And if the picture looked good, they'd have to wait till the thing developed. They would shake it around.
You have to wait 1 minute.
Yeah, they might take 30 Polaroids while you're doing a photo shoot, because it's not like nowadays you can go back in your camera and look at the digital image. You didn't know what you took on camera. You didn't know what it looked like. It was on film that had to go be developed. So they had to take the Polaroids to see what they were shooting, if the lighting was right, if it was going to come out right on camera. So at the end of the photo shoot, a lot of times there might be 30 Polaroids around. A lot of times they would just give you the Polaroids, if you did a photo shoot. But that would be the only thing you had from the photo shoot, because you never saw those pictures again unless they appeared in the magazine. So it was a way different world back in the 90s and early 2000s, because of the fact that you couldn't see the fruits of your labor of what you were taking picture-wise. You had to trust those Polaroids. And I remember that. Every photo shoot was like that. And I think with the very end in 2003, when I was shooting with Per Banal, he was shooting digital. I don't think he was doing Polaroids anymore. And everything was digital. And he'd be like, come here, look. He'd have like a computer screen. He'd stream the photos right to the computer screen, so you can see the pictures. And that was super high tech, and he could say, look at this, pal, this is a great picture. So he didn't have to do the whole Polaroid thing, but it probably cost him $20,000 to have that set up, where the camera went right to the laptop. Yeah. The world changed a lot.
But you know what? Times have changed, but Dillett's physique is timeless. You know, I mean, he was a freak, and some of these. I mean, Paul had injuries too. Shoulders were shot, but I don't think Paul really. He would tell you too. I don't think he reached his potential.
No, because
he could even be better than he was.
I don't think he spent enough time really on his bodybuilding. He did the minimum, and everything came very easy to him. I mean, he could have worked on his posing, and stuff like that. I don't think he cared enough about it.
He's another one, Dave. He's another one who got he got a contract by Joe, and he hadn't even competed yet. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I remember that. And he was didn't he have a problem at the North American or something like that? And they were trying to tell him he couldn't do the show or something like that. He's like, call Joe Weider or something like that.
Yeah, Paul came to Gold's Venice. Winston Roberts brought him down.
Right.
And Winston Roberts was an IFBB judge from Montreal.
Right.
And Winston brought Paul down to Gold's Venice and brought him up to see Joe. And he posed for Joe, and Joe gave him a contract on the spot.
Yeah, he was smart, Joe.
Yeah, and Paul, I think I met Paul that week. That must have been like 89 or something.
Okay.
88, and Paul told people that he got a contract with Joe, and Paul was talking about the Olympia. He wasn't even talking about the North Americas. And
he hadn't even gotten a pro card yet.
And you know what the thing is? He had this. I started out saying when we were at Mighty's gym, he used to wear these slacks. He used to wear warm-up suits like mafia bosses would wear. You know how like people wear like zippered warm-up suits and
Tony Freeman would wear the same stuff. Yeah.
And he would wear, instead of a white super tight t-shirt, he used to wear a red one back then. And I figured, right, when I thought, the reason he wears slacks is he's got no legs and no calves.
Right. Because just to give people a little idea of what the history of the industry was like, everyone was wearing humongous, big, clown-looking sweatpants that like ballooned out. That was the look back in that era, and so no one was wearing tight-fitting anything. So that was really he was an anomaly in that sense, right?
Yeah, well, he'd wear the tight t-shirt, but he'd wear these weird slacky, like, they look like nylon pants, and I figured, well, maybe he probably has no legs. This guy's crazy about the Olympia because he's got this super tight t-shirt on, and of course, at some point, I saw his legs and calves, and his calves were insane.
It was Sergio Oliva, his senior, outfit he used to wear, right? He used to wear those tight-fitting clothes too, right?
Yeah. That was the inspiration.
Yeah. Genetics. When you see guys like that, you just want to quit, right? When you see someone like Dillett come out of nowhere into the gym, you're like, you know what am I doing in bodybuilding? This is just not I must be crazy to think I can compete against these guys, But we delusionally convinced ourselves that we could. That was a
well, I mean, because people come from the mindset, which is true. I mean, if I work harder than
right,
a lot of things you can. I mean, you might not be the smartest guy in the class, but you can absolutely get the best grades in the class if you just really, apply yourself 100%. So there's that weird carryover that you think like, okay, I might not be good in math or physics. But in my, high school or college physics class, you can sit there and just digest it all and just work it all out and get like the highest grade or the highest GPA in the whole entire school. Yeah. You might not be the smartest, but you knew how to apply yourself. But in bodybuilding, right, you think like, okay,
100%, Chris.
I can get calves like Dillett. All I have to do is, this exercise, that exercise, this exercise. And meanwhile, Paul, how often do you train your calves? You probably don't train them at all.
Never. Yeah. You know what? When I was in, I've told you the story before. When I was in high school, I took high school chemistry over the summer because I wanted to knock it out. It was like a 6-week course for the whole semester of chemistry, and that's when I had my appendicitis attack, and I had to have my appendix taken out. So I missed 10 days. Now you were only allowed to miss 2 days, but the teacher felt bad for me. And he came and visited me in the hospital. He said, look, whatever you get on the Regents, which is the final, test, the New York State testing, I'll give you as your final grade. I wound up getting a 96 because I studied from these little books on, the test questions. All I did was test questions. I never even knew the material. So when I went into college, my first year, and I had to take 2 semesters of chemistry, I was a nervous wreck because I felt like a fraud. Like I hadn't really taken chemistry. I'm like, I'm going to get destroyed. It was my first semester in college. So I was they had a dorm room, a dorm floor where it was like all the pre-med kids were in there. Like, and a lot of these kids were really smart. And I was smart, but and so I was so nervous that for every test I would go to this one guy's room. He was a genius, this guy. And I would make him show me how to do all the problems. And we would go over and over. And he loved it. I don't know why. Maybe because I was, paying attention to the guy, And we studied together, for hours. And I would have him explain exactly, the mathematics of it and what was going on, because I'm an understanding guy. I can't learn from books. I need someone explaining to me. And I would make this guy go over these problems with me 100 times. I can't believe he had the patience to do it. So of course, Chris, when the tests would come, I was so well studied, and a lot of things came very easily for me anyway. So I was so overstudied that I was getting 100 on every test, and the guy who was helping me was getting like 95s on it. And I had the 2 semesters of chemistry, I had 2 A's and he had 2 A minuses. And after that, he never talked to me again. I think he was mad that I did better than him. And it was only because, like you said, I applied myself so much and overcompensated because I felt like I said, I didn't know anything, that I did better than guys that probably had much better. This guy went on to be a chemistry major, and he was probably
Dave, I studied so much in high school and college that any tests I would get, I would always, I'd be the first one done and get 100 on it. Right. Always.
Yeah. I don't think my problem was, you're smart. My problem.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think I was smart. I would just study it.
Right. But what happened with me is, once I realized that I can do it, I slacked that off after that. Like I still did well, but I said, okay, this is not that bad. I must have just been overreacting. So I went back to my lazy self of just doing, enough to do well, but not, necessarily getting too crazy with the studying. So my father's like, how come you got all A's the first 2 semesters, and the second semester, the second year, which is technically the third semester, your grades went down a little bit. I said, Dad, because you know what? I realized it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Typical Dave Palumbo, like laziness,
Well, if you get behind from the beginning, then you're toast. So
yeah, well, I still got into med school, so I guess my grades were good enough. But I was always of the mindset, you know what? You don't have to overcompensate on everything. Now with bodybuilding, I always felt I wasn't good enough, so I was always overstudying in a sense for bodybuilding, and I think that's probably why I achieved so much, because I was petrified of guys like Levrone and Paul Dillett, looking at their genetics, that I'll never beat these guys if I don't outwork them. That was my mentality. So.
Yeah. Well, I think when Jake was chasing Coleman, post 2001, I think once I might have asked something about, what are you doing for back? And what do you think his answer was?
Everything.
Dave, I should have wrote it down on a piece of paper. That's why you are the best. You are 100% the best. He didn't, it was a 1-word answer and you just nailed it. I'll never forget that.
Jay's very succinct in his answers.
And I don't, me, I don't interject myself into people's training and stuff. Usually it's like, well, I think you're overtrained, maybe take a couple of days off. Well, I'm 3 weeks out from a show. I say, you still need the time off. Yeah. And, that's my forte. You being overtrained and knowing when to recognize it when the body just doesn't respond. And so when you nailed it, Dave, when I asked him that question, what are you doing for back? Yeah. It was just point blank, everything.
He didn't have a great back when he turned pro, but his back was one of his best body parts, I think, once he, hit his stride, and was winning Olympia. So he definitely, that's a testament to the hard work he put in, He wasn't he definitely had genetics, to be great, but he didn't have Ronnie Coleman genetics by any means.
No, well, even Dillett.
Yeah.
Even Dillett genetics. I don't think he had Dillett genetics.
No. Or he didn't have Vince Taylor genetics. Not many people do, It's incredible when you see guys like that, and that's why Ronnie was so dominant, because Ronnie had those genetics and he had the work ethic, which is Ronnie could not be beat. Jay beat Ronnie because Ronnie started to show signs of aging, and his physique started to
I'd
fall
argue
apart.
with that. I'd argue with that, Dave, because he beat him in 01, but go ahead. I mean, he beat him on the score sheets, period. There's no argument.
You know what? Because Ronnie was off. You know, we heard the whole, whatever Chad stories about whatever went on wrong. But I'm just saying Ronnie could only beat himself. He really couldn't be beaten at his best. At his best. I'm saying once he got to a certain degree, his physique started to deteriorate. And that's because I believe this is because Ronnie started late. People don't realize that Ronnie was competing into his 40s, and no one did that back then. That was unheard of, not at that level,
Yeah.
Dorian retired at what, like 36? Haney at what, like 32?
I don't even think was Haney even that old. I don't think he was.
I think, Haney was really young. So it made him in 30 even, So, I mean, no one in the history of bodybuilding, was really, doing that. I mean, I know Dickerson was older when he won the Olympia, but that was kind of like an off year he won. But Ronnie was doing it at a very high level, into older age. And you know what? Old age wins. The father time never loses. I wanted to bring up something. I don't know if you remember we were talking about Arnold back a few weeks back, filling in some potholes in his neighborhood.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and he got in trouble after, and then he got Go ahead.
Yeah, the town of Los Angeles is trying to make it seem like it was a work ditch that he filled in,
a gas line ditch or something.
And he went crazy because he said that just was not the case.
Yeah.
He said they're full of it. They were done working and they left this hole there. That's what they filled in. They didn't fill in any kind of utility work, thing. Like the town was trying to downplay what Arnold did because they looked embarrassed, like they had left this hole in the street. Arnold wasn't trying to get like publicity for this. Yeah, I don't think Arnold wanted to go out there and fill in a hole, on his day off,
Yeah. Yeah, but what's the name of the neighborhood he lives in? I forget, Dave.
I don't even know. I'm surprised you don't know the house.
Calabasas? No, it's near Malibu. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, Calabasas is where the Kardashians used to live, right?
Yeah, maybe that's it. I've been up there once for a photo shoot, Dave, with Weider. Weider had rented this house once.
Right.
Probably like, oh my gosh.
They didn't say. It doesn't say here.
30 years ago, 20 years ago, Joe had rented this house for a photo shoot. It was like the neighborhood. They said, "Oh, Arnold lives in this neighborhood." No, of course he does. It was like
Chris's eyes went bing. Real estate?
I mean, when you come in from the East Coast, it's like going to. I mean, talk about everything. There was not in that neighborhood. There was not a blade of grass out of sync with another blade of grass.
Weider did that back in the day. It's funny you bring that up, but I remember my ex-wife. She did some photo shoots with the Weider, lingerie issues and stuff like that, and they would rent these mansions for the day or for 2 days, and they would shoot in the houses. And no one ever did that. Who did that? I mean, that was like a Weider. Even Bleckman was too cheap to do that type of stuff. That was a Weider original, to get a really high-end house, a mansion, and shoot at the pool, shoot, at the pool table, shoot in the crazy, library they would have there, whatever his motif for the day was. And those photo shoots are iconic, a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they spent, I mean, I can't even imagine the monthly budget for Muscle Fitness Flex in its heyday. Oh my God. Insane.
I remember when they shot, they did a spread for Muscle and Fitness on Triple H. And Triple H said, "Hey, why don't you come and you can train, since you do my diet and everything like that, you can train me in the photos. You'll be like spotting me and stuff like that." I'm like, "Yeah, cool." So I drove up to the WWE headquarters, which by the way, they now have a new building they just built. They're not in that old building. Well, it wasn't really an old building, but it was a nice building. But they had a gym. So we were in the gym, and when I walked into the WWE gym, the Muscle and Fitness people, first of all, they must have had about 10 people there who were, setting up, photographers. I think Per Bernal shot it. Yeah, Per was shooting it. And you would not believe what they did. I mean, it must have cost 50 grand to shoot this photo shoot with Triple H.
Oh, sure.
I mean, the way they had all these cameras and everything set up, and the whole staff that they brought with them.
Yeah, fly the people out.
And I know that Per Manal is not cheap. Blackman used to always complain about what he charged, but he was the best. And they did a great photo shoot. Triple H was on the cover, and I was in the magazine with him. And it's funny, I have someone framed the pages for me and sent it to me. But they did it right. I got to tell you, they really did high-end stuff. It's unfortunate now with social media now, Chris, people won't spend $3 on a location shoot anymore. It's like iPhone, take the picture, upload to Instagram. That's it. There's no more creativity involved.
Well, it was a different time, and just the idea that that there was the interesting thing, Gabe, is that there were, the idea that there was magazines supporting the sport, and the magazines were making a fortune.
Yeah.
It was only later in life that Joe took that fortune and supported the bodybuilders directly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But think about it. Let's say Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, for that matter, and YouTube, all their service crashed, or they just went out of business, or whatever the case. Probably most people would have 0 pictures of themselves. There's nothing. We have millions of pictures of ourselves, but they're all uploaded to some cloud somewhere that we think they're there, but they're really not there. We don't have any. No one has a single printed out picture of themselves, probably. And it's all, as my father would say, paper mache. All it takes is a good wind to blow it away, And we might not have a lot of pictures from the 90s and early 2000s, but we got those pictures, we have those 25 pictures of ourselves that look really good in a file cabinet somewhere. If we want to look at them, we can pull them out, So it's funny. The world has really changed. But I think for the better, but
well, listen, different. The world's changed. Did I tell you this? I was out of town one day, and my son asked me something. Somebody texted me, and I said, "It's on my Rolodex." He said, "What is that?"
The only one with a Rolodex. I don't have a Rolodex anymore. That Rolodex is where you put everyone's phone number, their name and phone number. It's alphabetical.
It's a backup. Even though I have Carbonite. If Carbonite goes down, I still need what's Dave Palumbo's number? What's Jay's number?
You're right. If I lose my phone, I have no numbers. Do you know what I looked? When I was transferring my phones to a new iPhone, you download all the numbers from the iCloud. Thank God you can do that on your own nowadays. I have like 8,000 phone numbers in my phone, Chris. 8,000.
Why?
Because
Dave, you want to see this one in my Rolodex?
I have a lot of clients and people over the years.
Some of it is nostalgia.
I'm sure. Read me one.
Look at this. This is from my Rolodex. Speaking of the devil.
I can't see it. It's blurred. Joe, what does it say? You're holding it too close to the camera. Back it up. Joe Weider?
Yep. Cell number.
Wow.
933-8182.
I bet if we call it, I wonder who will answer.
I wonder. Yeah. Hello.
Joe's still alive. No one even knows about it. You know how they say Elvis really never died? I bet Joe is still alive.
Yeah. So that one I don't. There's a couple of them there that I don't. I couldn't bring myself on that Rolodex to check it because I don't have any I think I have one picture of me and him, and that's it. And you can't throw that number out. That's like historical almost, we'll put it in the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame. You know how old that thing is?
Well, that's not that old. If you what'll really impress me, if you can go back and show me in your Rolodex someone's number who doesn't have an area code before the number. Because you remember, I don't know about in Maine, but in New York, if everyone's in the same area code, you didn't have to dial the area code. So when I would call my friends, I didn't have to dial 516, which was the Long Island area.
I remember when the Bronx went from 212 to 718.
I know that was a huge thing. People were really upset about that.
Yeah, they were upset about it because Bob Gruskin had changed his number.
Just all numbers in the New York 5 boroughs were 212 area code, and then they ran out of phone numbers, so they had to go to 718. And only Manhattan was 212.
Yeah,
and Long Island was 516, all of Long Island, until they ran out of numbers.
People
and they
in
had
the
to go
Bronx,
to 631. They went to 631 for Suffolk County.
Yes, and back in the day, you could lie to people and say, "Oh, I'm living in Manhattan," where you're really living in the Bronx until you get the phone number switched from 212 to 718.
Right. And nowadays, I'm in Florida, but I still have that 516 area code on my cell phone. You could tell where people are from. Oh, you're from Long Island. How did you know? Get the 516 area code. You know that I have the same phone number same cell phone number since 1993. I think it was when the cell phones, the first first flip phone came out. Motorola.
Great. Nextel. You remember the Nextel numbers with the like a walkie-talkie on it?
I never had a Nextel. I had a Motorola, and I don't remember what I went to from the Motorola, but that I still have the same phone number, never changed it. So
yeah, it's good that it never changes, and people can never lose track of you.
That's right. Everyone can find me at all times. All right, we got to wrap today up. Good show. I think we talked a lot about the new guys, some of the old guys. We do have the Masters Olympia coming up over the summer. It's going to take place in overseas. We have the Pittsburgh guest posing come up. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that in detail next week. And I think we're going to have some big shows coming up.
Call up Jim. Dave, call up Jim, and you can do a live play-by-play. People would love it of the Pittsburgh guest post. Say, you know what, he's a little too fat for me for the off season, and you know what, I'm surprised here, and this guy.
They're live streaming that show. I think that Gary's been doing into live. I know Steve Weinberg is live streaming the New York Pro. They should definitely live stream Pittsburgh. I guarantee people would sign up for the live stream just to see the guest post.
I think they would, but it'll be sold out anyway. So
yeah. All right. As we say every week here at Heavy Muscle Radio, with Heavy Muscle Radio.
Really, the truth hurts.
We've been doing this for how many years now? 15 years. We still can't time the ending. We do the same ending every single week.
Only John Hansen can do it.
All right, guys. We'll see you back next week, same time.